able to legally deliver it right to your door. And between now and when they're operating in the city of Taylor, I think you're covered. My last statement, trying to respond to some of the things I'm hearing in the crowd, I'd love for someone to show me about the tax windfall. Out of fairness to somebody who thinks it's going to be a windfall, I don't think you can prove it to me. If I'm kind of a naysayer, out of fairness to you, I can't prove that it won't be. But when you're looking at a moving target in terms of how much money will be generated, how much taxes will be paid, and the portion thereof that's going to go to municipalities, it's really difficult to say that for a city like Taylor that's operating on a $41 or $42 million budget, that the amount of tax revenue that would be added from our share of the 15% excise tax is going to move the needle on anything. Would more money be better? Of course. What's the offset in cost to the city? And then where do we end up financially? I've talked to lots of people. I gave every member of council a report from the Senate Finance Committee trying to say, gee, what would it really mean to the city of Taylor? It's not a big number. It's not a big number at all. They're going to cover their costs first. $20 million is going to go to research, 15% to counties, 15% to municipalities. We're going to get 15% of a number, and then they're going to prorate it based on how many of these businesses you have in your community, right? So if you say, well, the big number everyone keeps throwing around is this industry will eventually be $1.7 billion, right? So take the 10% excise tax, you got 170 million, take 15% of that, that's the amount that's going to get divided amongst communities. How much of that is going to come to Taylor? It's hard to tell because we don't know how many of these establishments are going to exist in the state. But if we go with what we did after 3 years of studying, and we were going to allow 2 of these businesses in our city, and then we look at what has already been put on the books just for medical, not counting recreational, all right? There's 26 cities in the state of Michigan that have no cap on the number of establishments they'll allow in their community. We got 2. 26 other communities, it's going to be a free-for-all. And remember, when that 15% of 170 million 5 years from now gets doled out, it's prorated. I wrote down Detroit is authorized up to 75, and I'm only talking medical. I don't know how many more recreational they're going to have. Bay City's 50, Lansing 25, Flint 20. We are going to be such a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of that prorated share of the excise tax. It's probably not going to be overly significant for the city. I'm not saying anyone in the crowd is arguing that it's only financial, but I think it's a piece of the discussion, and until it happens otherwise, and these aren't Dan Bazura fuzzy math numbers, I've shared with all my colleagues that this is what, from the Senate Fiscal Agency, this was their numbers, their projections, this is what we think you as a city and our state can expect. It's not going to be a big number. How do we get a bigger piece of the pie? Let's have 5 of them. Let's have 10 of them. Hell, let's be like Detroit. Let's do 75. Now I'm not sure we want 75. I'm admitting I don't know what the real number is. Somehow the people that wrote our medical ordinance, the people that wanted to make this happen in the city, thought 2 made sense. We're going to get a pretty small piece of that pie. So if we want to do this, let's do it. But I'm not sure a financial windfall to help the city, to hire police, to help the schools. I'm not buying that argument. We're not going to do it because it's a financial tax windfall for the city. At least not in my opinion, not yet.
Councilwoman Pats.
I just wanted to say too that if this does pass today, you know, I'm hoping that we're not going to wait 3 years like we did with the medical marijuana. You know, I'm hoping we're not going to wait that. So I'm recommending that once this, whatever happens tonight, if we vote to opt out first just now, that we get right into it to make that ordinance happen, so it doesn't hang out there.
I agree.
Councilman Johnson. Councilman Johnson.
So according to the document I have, City of Inkster, we have 3. Am I correct? Are you seeing that too, Dan? And then we have Garden City, River Rouge, and Wayne. I have no problem with going to any of those cities. But again, I voted for this. I just want to be able to have more control in our city, just like we did with the medical.
Well, like I said earlier, I think.
It's still legal.
Yeah, the fact that we've been through, you know, rough waters with the medicinal, I think we can go into the, you know, but I think that, you know, we still are waiting to see, there are still some uncertainties amongst the state, you know, that I think we're all considering as well. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. You already spoke on it, Ms. Sobrowski, and then you left us stand, so. It's what?
Not derogatory. I actually just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate the way you took the time to explain that, very detailed. Ms. Croft, I appreciate your comments. Mr. Becerra, I don't always agree with you, but I absolutely liked what you said. I appreciate that because you were very detailed, you were specific. What I would like to see from this council, though, those comments should have came out first, not after you rile everybody up and you make people think one thing. Maybe those things should come out
Ms.
first.
Sobrowski, in all fairness, we talked about that. Mr. McDonald asked these questions at the last, and we talked about that. I had 4 people reach out to me on this subject, personally, contacted me via Facebook, contacted me via cell phone. Every one of them were against it, and one of them were a smoker. So I'm always willing to just sit down. I'm speaking on myself personally. I'm always willing to discuss the thing. If somebody wants to schedule a meeting with me, I'm more than glad. But the problem was people ran to Facebook and created all this hysteria, in my opinion, about, oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do this, making assumptions and allegations. And we haven't even voted on it yet. And we wanted to talk about it. The only reason this was a special meeting, we weren't trying to hide anything or skate anything through. We learned, what, 2-3 weeks ago, that we had to do this by November 1st. None of us enjoy coming in here on our, technically a day we shouldn't. So we always want to try to discuss this stuff.
I really didn't think you were.
Right.
It was a little quick, granted, but things happen and that's that. I appreciate the fact that you're looking out for the city, that you want to make sure it's done right. To your comment, you know, the bars were done wrong. We want to do this right. 100% I agree, because you don't want helter-skelter. You don't want all the crap that's going to go along with it, because I'm sure there's going to be crap. But again, you have a lot of people in this city that feel, and Facebook aside, because not all my information, believe it or not, comes from Facebook, okay? There are other sources out there. But it just sometimes we feel like we're not being heard. And the comments that you made me feel so much better. I mean, you de-escalated me like this. But that should have came out first, not last.
Well, I think the biggest issue is I don't think a lot of people realized that when we voted, you know, in previous meetings, you know, and I understand these things ain't always the most exciting things, but we do have meetings where we voted on the medicinal, we explained how many dispensaries we were going to have and all that stuff. So I think a lot of people didn't even realize that we were going to have dispensaries in this city. There's going to be 2 medicinal. Now you will need a card for that.
I thought that's what this was tonight.
Right.
So you're right. I wasn't as formed as I should have been because I thought it was about the dispensaries. Right. I was here when you voted on that, so I was confused. Wait a minute, didn't they vote to allow 2 dispensaries into the city? So, okay, now I'm clear, and I have to say I apologize to all of you if I did get a little irate, because I get passionate about stuff when it comes to my city. I've lived here for over 50 years, and some of the stuff that I'm seeing right now, I'm not real happy with. Right. So, but I appreciate all that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to call for a vote. I'm going to call for a vote because I think we've discussed, everybody's given their opinions, and you know, after the meeting, if there's something that's certain.
We're already in Taylor right now. You brought up, didn't deliberate. Already one running in Taylor.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Becerra.
Are you guys aware of this?
My reading of the emergency rules that are out there is that if somebody is, I'm speaking the recreational rules that are in effect, if somebody has a secure transport or a delivery service, that they would be allowed to do business in cities or drive through cities that have opted out of recreational marijuana. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but it seems logical that if this gentleman wanted something delivered to his home and we opted out, would that prevent it from happening? And my understanding, my reading of the law is no. If a secure transporter is going from Romulus to Wyandotte, they can drive through Taylor. We can't stop them. And if there's a delivery service, they can deliver to Taylor. If you're telling me there's a licensed business operating out of the city of Taylor, they shouldn't be doing that. my understanding, because we haven't approved their medical marijuana license to do that. If you want,
What is it?
I've gotten a delivery from them actually, and that's a nightmare. Delivery service is an absolute nightmare because they can rip you off. Unlike going